one of the questions, I'm sure that you guys encountered this question, is am I in this mind state because of external circumstances, or is it coming about through just my own inner tendencies, right? And I don't know if you guys have inner tendencies, but I do. I think everybody has inner tendencies, right? To go down different routes, and some of them positive, some of them negative, right? And the stories we tell ourselves, and the habitual emotional patterns. I think we have natural or conditioned, whatever, tendencies to tend towards happy moods or sad moods or anxious states or angry states, and obviously we're not in any of those states permanently, but I think most people have proclivities, and so when you're finding yourself, I mean, I'm speaking in the second person instead of the first person, but I could be just speaking in the first person in any case. When you're finding yourself sort of struggling with one of those states, and you look at the world as one does and say, well, of course I'm in this mood. The world is really messed up, right? I mean, if it's a bad mood. But then, then there are times when you'll be like, well, the world's really messed up, but I feel okay. So then you're like, well, wait a minute. Where's this coming from? Where is this starting? And of course, and we know, I mean, certainly if you've done, I mean, you don't have to be a meditator, but certainly meditating helps to reveal this, that you can change your mind state yourself, right? Unrelated to external circumstances, that with enough practice, spiritual work, you can alter your mood and your attitude and your whole way of seeing things. And that's a lot of what recovery is about. It's a lot of what Buddhism is about, changing ourselves internally. But that doesn't mean we can always do it, I guess is what I'm getting. We know we can, but can we right now? And so there's that aspect of kind of acceptance and sometimes struggle, and I've definitely been in one of these struggle stages, which I don't like. It's and I mean, literally, like sitting here before I turned on Zoom, I was like, oh man, these stupid classes. Like, why do I have to have all these classes? But really, it's not like I'm thinking, oh, I could be doing something else. There's not something else I'd rather be doing. And as soon as I see you guys and I start to talk, I feel better. So that's why I have these stupid classes. To make me feel better, in case you were wondering why you were here. You're all here to make me feel better. And you are all here to make you feel better. And you are all here to help everybody else here to feel better. So that's how it's supposed to work, right? That's what community is supposed to do. So that's my pre-meditation. We'll see what state I'm in after the meditation. I'll tell you. You can be sure. Let's begin to sit. So just to kind of go along with what I mentioned I was working on this morning, just focusing on the breath. Just going to suggest for this morning that we try working very strongly with our mindful breathing. And first, just establishing posture. So we need to be upright and have the chest open, the belly soft, to give room for the breath. So there are two places in the body that are typically pointed to where you can be mindful of the breath, either at the tip of the nose or at the belly. I usually use the tip of the nose, but I'm often kind of using a more expanded view of the breath where I'm kind of feeling it through the whole body. But right now, I'm going to suggest that you go to one of those places, either the belly or the tip of the nose, and really try to work with that and stay with that for this meditation period. But the first thing we need to do is really feel what the sensation's feeling. Feel like the feeling of breathing in, the feeling of breathing out. We're just paying attention to this very small area. We're not trying to feel the whole body or any other sensations, just right where you feel the breath, the touch of air at the nostrils, or the movement of the belly. And one way to help you distinguish these sensations and become more clear about them is to just notice the contrast between the sensations of the in-breath and the sensations of the out-breath. That distinction should help you to feel the breath. In breath, out breath. And then perhaps add some words, just noting the breath. Just saying breathing in, breathing out in your mind. Breathing in, breathing out. In, out. In, out. And see if you can stay with the whole breath, not just being aware that you're breathing in and out, but feeling the whole in breath and the whole out breath. And then connecting one breath to the next. There might be a space in between. And just trying to stay with the continuity of breathing. If the mind wanders, if you find you've lost touch with the breath, that's natural. So as soon as you realize that's happened, just gently come back and start again, feeling the in-breath and the out-breath, breathing in, breathing out. In, out. Feel how mindfulness of the breath can relax the whole body. staying with those sensations of mindful breathing and feeling how the body naturally settles as the mind settles on the breath. Notice if there is a mood behind the breath and the body, something influencing the way you are experiencing, feeling. Something that generates patterns of thought. The mood is often hidden behind the thinking. We have to look more closely, feel into our experience to understand what's driving the mental states, the thought patterns. All right. So nice to see everyone. Just looking through, see who's here. I spent a lot of my weekend reading through what's called the proofs. I've got a little lisp because I don't have my real teeth in the front right now. I'm never going to have them again. Actually, they took them away. So I have these fake teeth and I'm lisping. My wife was kind enough to point that out. Uh, so now I'm noticing it, right? Anyway, the proofs are like, this is like one of the last stages before this book gets published. And so they send you after, it's weird. I don't know how the whole process works, but somehow these little typos slip into the process, things that I didn't actually write that somehow get into the book. And so, and I get the opportunity to look through it and make some final notes and then catch other little things. Not much. It's not really editing, but this is a book that I first published 4 years ago, 2018, and it's going to be published again by Shambhala this fall. It's called Living Kindness, and it's about, as the title suggests, loving kindness and compassion, and kind of, it's really an attempt to sort of ask some questions and take some different, bring a different viewpoint to the way these practices like loving kindness, and hopefully you're familiar with that practice, how that's taught and how it's presented, because I see it as kind of presented sometimes as like a feel-good practice and like, oh, just do this and say these happy words and then you'll be happy. And that's not only does that not make sense to me, it also isn't really what the Buddha taught. And that's what I kind of try to get at, some of the other more subtle and complicated ways that the Buddha talks about compassion and loving kindness. And particularly he talks a lot about non-ill will. And this is a point that I kind of make in the book, that to try to distinguish what's the difference between love and non-ill will. And I kind of, what I'm trying to say is that if we can just not hate people, that's kind of what the Buddha was teaching, rather than kind of trying to feel all this warm affection towards everybody. Like there's, a lot of people I'm probably not going to feel that for, but if I can just not feel hate, that has a transformative impact. And anyway, one of the chapters in the book is called the Greed, Hatred, and Delusion Report. And greed, hatred, and delusion are what the Buddha called 3 poisons. And they're the 3 things that cause suffering, both internally and externally, that we are driven and have these feelings of lack that cause greed, and aversion or resentment or resistance that cause hatred, and not really understanding cause and effect and how suffering arises, which makes us act out of delusion. So greed, hatred, and delusion. And that they're both internal and they're external. And I was thinking while we were sitting about this sutta, I have to dig it out. I can't remember which one it is, but it's one where the Buddha is kind of talking about how these qualities that are felt by individuals, and that every individual encounters these qualities in themselves, but how they become expressed externally, and that they evolve into war ultimately, and human conflict on the mass scale. But there's one particular part of that sutta where he starts talking about these forms of torture that have strange names. Again, I wish I could dig it up, because you'd be, I don't know, you might be horrified or you might be amused. I find it both amusing and horrifying. That the Buddha knows about these forms of torture, and they're very graphic and very specific. And so it just, really calls to mind, what the theme of this chapter is kind of the talking heads line, same as it ever was, that greed, hatred, and delusion that we see in our world and that we see in ourselves are not unique to our time or our country or our culture, that they are these universal poisons, and that's what the Buddha's teaching is meant to heal or to cure or to detoxify, the antidote to the poisons. And I find that in times like this, which, it just seems like a horrifying time in human history. I don't know if you noticed, but this is, I need this reminder to realize that it's bad, and people tortured people 2,500 years ago, and there were wars, and the Buddha was sometimes consulted by leaders, by kings, asking if they should go to war against their neighbor, and he would say, well, generally he would say no, but he would give a reason, that was not just, no, war is a bad thing, or you should be nonviolent. He would actually say, well, if that country is living by if they're led by wise people and they're living by wise values, then you shouldn't go to war against them. So, which, okay, then if they're not, then I guess I can. I don't know. And so there's this, this big picture, right? That to try to keep in mind, that I try to keep in mind when I'm getting drowned. And then there's the small picture of the breath right here and right now, right? Which is what I was trying to point us to, and what I was personally pointing myself to this morning. Like, it doesn't do me or the world any good to be overwhelmed. I have to take care of myself and find a way to continue to care, to take care of myself, to take care of my own emotional balance, and to take care of those around me, to be kind to them, and to be of some service in the world. Yeah, because I also have to acknowledge, and certainly this is in that chapter of this book, and it's the only book I've written that isn't about recovery, but it still is about recovery. But I also acknowledge in this book that my perception of the world is largely created by a media system which wants to agitate me. It wants to trigger greed, hatred, and delusion in me, because it knows that will arouse my interest and make me, as they say, get clicks. I will continue to read. If they report that things are very peaceful on Vincenti Avenue in Berkeley, California, people seem to be getting along very well. Neighbors are waving to each other when they walk out of the house. The garbage has been picked up every week, nobody's going to read that article. It's not very interesting. But it's as true as the fact that there are people killing each other out there. And I can't forget that. I believe that most people, the great, great, great majority of humans on this planet, are guided more by love than by hate. They spend their lives mostly trying to take care of themselves and others, maybe their families or whoever, that they are mostly interested in having a peaceful world. But it doesn't take a lot of people who are completely overwhelmed with their greed, hatred, and delusion to disturb the world. We know that, So all of this is to cheerlead myself into having a good day, just having a good day, one day at a time, really. It's all we can do. Theoretically, I've been, I've been meaning to use my book, A Burning Desire, as a kind of guide for these classes. And I was looking at that this morning, and in fact, I'm probably talking about it in a way, because the section that we are in is about the higher power of suffering. And it's an odd formulation to suggest that suffering is a higher power. But just as what I'm describing is about using the present moment challenge to motivate something positive, that's like one of the powers of suffering, right? It wakes us up. It's the thing that motivates people to stop drinking and taking drugs and overeating and acting out in all the ways that we do. So first and foremost, to me, the higher power of suffering is that it's the power that wakes us up to the need for change. It also, in some circumstances, guides us towards acceptance. When we see that sometimes suffering is just what must happen, because our bodies must age. Points to teeth. Our people, there is loss, there's failure, there are all the challenges of life there, and how do we live with that? Do we live in anger and rage and fighting with reality? No, as the Alcoholics Anonymous book says, acceptance is the answer to our problems today. So acceptance is a response to suffering, right? Grant me the acceptance to serenity to accept the things I cannot change. So when we find ourselves in that conflict with suffering, we see that the way to serenity, to end that suffering, is by accepting. that inner experience. And this is clearly one of the purposes and values of meditation, that it's when you sit down and just stop moving, like stop externalizing, operating in this sort of externalized way, and just see what's going on inside me. You see that conflict between yourself and reality, or between your feelings and your thoughts, or just you sit with it and you see, oh, I'm creating this suffering by fighting with what I cannot change. We see it explicitly. This is one of the purposes of meditation, is to, I'll use this term, to force us to face the way we are creating suffering for ourselves, to take us out of it. So we can't blame the world. Right now, there's nobody doing anything to me except me. And I'm creating stuff here. I'm creating crap. I'm sitting here in this whatever state it is, right, of resistance, of dissatisfaction, of feeling that things need to be different for me to be okay. And I breathe, and I feel that in my body. And then I see that when I just stop. It's a Hollies song, but we won't go into that. I can let it go, that I can be okay, that the world doesn't have to change for me to be okay. I don't have to fix the world for me to be okay. That simply by letting go of that need, of that greed, hatred, and delusion, and just being here and breathing, that I can be okay for a moment, at least for a moment. And maybe it comes back. Of course it comes back. But this is our practice, right? To let go. I mean, it's this simplest ideas. But I think it is important to see this process and to see how it's working. And so we can understand then that what we see as wrong about the world, or wrong about ourselves, or whatever we are in resistance to, whatever we feel as suffering, can actually be transformed through our relationship to it. And this is sort of the essence of Buddhism, I would say. It's my version of the essence of Buddhism. I think others might have other descriptions of it, but really it's getting at the Four Noble Truths, which I won't, I think, go through right now. But to say, so seeing that this power of suffering, this idea of suffering as a higher power, is that it wakes us up and motivates us to let go, to change. That it motivates us to try another way, a path of acceptance rather than a path of resistance. And then finally, maybe not finally, but a third element of it is that it awakens compassion. When we look deeply at our own suffering and we see how we create our own struggles, after a while, we realize that it's not unique to us, that the struggle we're going through is universal. And again, this is why studying the Dharma, studying the Buddha, and seeing that the struggles that happened back then are the same struggles that people have now. We realize that all beings are creating suffering. All beings are, poisoned by greed, hatred, and delusion. And so that in moments of letting go, we can take that letting go a step further into a caring for others. That it's not just a personal experience that, oh, wow, I feel freedom in this moment because I'm letting go. Oh, if only everyone could feel that. And this is exactly what the Buddha experienced, as the story goes, but, we'll say under the Bodhi tree, that he had this awakening. And it was like, oh, that's it. I need to let go of this clinging. I need to be awake to it. And then, it's mythologized that he said to himself, but people aren't going to get this. It's really too subtle an idea. It goes against everything they believe. Everybody thinks that they need to get things and fix things and change things. And he's realizing, no, it's just the opposite. You need to let go of all that. And people are going to resist that idea. But then supposedly a God comes to him and speaks to him, but let's put it in contemporary terms, that he kind of has this realization, oh, what am I thinking? Like, of course, somebody else is going to get it. I'm not the only person who's going to be able to understand this idea. Sure, other people are going to get it. And then he starts to teach. And then that just becomes his whole motivation for his life, for the rest of his life, is to try to help other people to see that. So that came out of his suffering, right? That enlightenment, and then that 45 years of teaching. And it wasn't easy, those years. There were a lot of struggles in those times. That kept him going was his motivation, his desire to free other people from suffering. So to say that, I turn my will and my life over to the care of suffering, it might seem like an odd turn of phrase, right? And yet, it's really what's going on here. It's really what, step 12 in the 12 steps is about. It's, I have woken up to my own suffering in the way that I can end it. And now I am going to try to carry that message to other people. I'm going to try to practice that awareness in all my affairs, that I can be free from suffering, that there is a way. Well, I've talked myself into a better mood, so there you go. Thank you for hanging out. So if anybody wants to chime in, share it all, or even ask a question, make a comment, you're welcome to do that now. Hey, Steve. Hi.
That was some good stuff. Thank you. Wow. When you first started, we went through a little bit of this last Friday night, and the stuff has kind of been welling up inside of you. And I personally felt that I witnessed some of that at the retreat, and it really hits home for me, because all this internal dialogue that we carry on, it gets, for me, it seems like it manifests itself from all that external stuff, but yet we spend so much time trying to fix everything. I'm the same way. My codependency, how am I going to fix this horrible world and this horrible circumstance and all the things that are going on? And what I'm experiencing firsthand is, my grandson's been with me for a couple of years, and he's going to be moving out after next week. and he's still a lazy slob. And yet, and then I've tried everything I possibly could, and I just love him so much. But I know I just can't fix that.
No.
But I can certainly go within, and all I can say is I've increased my meditation times to an hour now in the mornings, because that's where I find refuge. I
Yeah.
find my refuge in the sitting, and we talked about that at the retreat. But I just want to say thank you so much for this. Was just such a wonderful teaching. It's just, you think about, for me, here's a guy that's been doing this for 45 years, and he still has these experiences, because we're just human, and this is part of what it's like to be alive. So thank you, Kevin. It was really a great teaching this morning. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve. And just to remember that most young men are lazy slobs, or at least slobs. So, usually overcoming slobdom, takes some growing up. So we'll try to be patient with that.
There's always hope. I always have hope.
And, it's not the end of the world, it's there's a lot of years ahead in which growth and change can happen. So
Most definitely. Thank you.
yeah, thanks. Hey, Monica. Hi.
Hi. Very powerful teaching and right on time, because in my meditation this morning, I was really unsettled, and I haven't had that for a long time. It was like there's a disturbance in the force, and it just actually pulled it together, it is external forces for me too.
Yeah.
My very elderly mother, who has dementia now, is having a lot of emotional breakdowns. And it's hard. It's really hard not to suffer from that. So, but thank you. I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, there's no getting around the fact that we're living in a pretty unusually difficult time. Certainly, if you start to pile up things like 4 years of a dangerous leader ending with a pandemic that doesn't seem to end, and then piling on, racist police killing Black men, just, all the guns you want to just kill anybody. And then we'll have a little war, a land war in Europe to add on to that. And the sense of maybe our country coming apart. It's just good that you don't live forever, because I think it's like, oh God.
It's good for me to remember impermanence.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a kid, we were taught, when you get back to the country state of over the world, that we were like the solid one, and that was just an illusion.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
a delusion. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the more I study the Buddha, the more I understand how impermanent everything is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Walter. Hi.
Hi there. First off, I want to say thanks, man. This was epic. I needed this morning. And Steve, I want to say right quick, I diagnosed a kid at 12 years old as a slow slob, and he is currently 28, getting his doctorate's degree in forensic science. Got about a year left, and he's still a slow slob, man. Bless his heart. But I'm grateful, and I think Monica alluded to it. Nothing is permanent, so there's still hope for him, but also I wanted to share, Kevin, that I'm 34 years sober in AA, and
Nice.
I've not done a whole lot of 2 to 3 minute meditations here and there over the years. And I have these periods that I go deep, and then I'm just not a rigid person. I'm a
Mhm.
regimented person, you
Mhm.
know, and I'm again. I mean, I think I have some additional tools through your book, One Breath at a Time, and being able to join this group, you know, to maybe this is the time that I'm going to really grow in that area, and I'm excited about it, man. I truly am, and this has been wonderful for me. Thank you,
Beautiful.
and that's all I needed to share. Thank you.
That's so nice to hear, Walter. You know, one breath at a time, I wrote that for you and for people who, you know, have been around the program and who, you know, yeah, needed a way in to particularly to meditation. And so and it's one of the reasons why we gather together, because we need each other to like motivate us, just like we need meetings to motivate us in recovery. We need meditation groups to motivate us in our meditation. And hopefully, yeah, when we do that as a group, then it starts to carry over into our daily lives, and it starts to become you know, part of our I don't know what the term is, like just part of our daily life, you know.
A daily ritual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard this Korean Zen master speak many years ago, and he said, every day we clean our bodies, but where do we clean our minds? And that struck me as a good image for what I'm doing in my daily meditation practice, that I'm just, you know, brushing my teeth and flossing my mind, you know. And if I think of it as that, as just part of my daily hygiene, it's like my mental hygiene, then it's not so much that I'm doing something spiritual or it's like some burdensome thing. It's just like, yeah, I mean, I don't leave the house without brushing my teeth because it doesn't feel good. After a while, I mean, that's one of the things about doing it regularly, right? When you meditate every day for a while, then you notice when you didn't. And it's like, ooh, man, like that doesn't feel good. So yeah, welcome to this journey, and I hope you stick with us. Yeah. So we're at the top of the hour. And I guess bottom of the hour is like the half hour. I think I've heard that. I figured that out from the radio. We're at the top of the hour. If someone wants to chime in with the final comment, am I seeing Anne joining, or was she leaving? Oh, too bad. Were you going to say something, Anne? I saw your hand reaching out to your screen. You should say something.
Yeah, I should say something. Yeah, I'm on my phone, so it's a little
Yeah.
disorienting.
You're back home, or where are you?
Yeah, I'm back home.
Very good.
I'm back home, and your topic today couldn't be more, I know, probably most people here are saying, couldn't be more appropriate for me today. You know? So I wanted to just express my appreciation for you showing up. You know, we don't believe everything we think. We don't have to believe everything we think. We don't have to act on everything we think. Because if you acted on what you thought, you wouldn't be here today. You know?
That's true.
Or Friday, because I heard you say Friday too. And I was really caught in suffering, and it's very interesting. And I realized it during the sit. I'm like, oh, and then tears came. This is suffering, you know. And I have these moments, around my health, which is things coming up, whatever, blah blah blah. And you think you have it all under control. I have it all under control. And I'm like, I'm okay with this and I've got it. And then bam, I just, the fear comes or whatever, you know, and it surprises me, which I shouldn't, you know, obviously. But so the higher power suffering is a fine line, right? Because we do get attached to our suffering literally and stay
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I guess and maybe I haven't read the section, so maybe it's in the section, but it's that moment of, oh, okay, I'm here right now and with my breath, and I'm not suffering right now because I'm here, I'm present. And that leads to a lot of peace. And so just thank you, just thank you. Look forward to seeing you soon
Yeah.
and talking with you more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you. Jim B, I saw you had your hand up. So, go ahead. I'm in no hurry. The golf courses are going to be open very late today because the sun doesn't go down. So we got plenty of time.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, no wars on the golf course, I hope.
Generally not. Occasionally there's, yelling at people to get out of their way or something, but
yeah. So thank you so much. Really inspiring and, just, yeah, this is what all of us need to hear. Maybe every day a little pep talk to get the day started. A Buddhist pep talk. Couple things. One was, you said that the best we can do is kind of rally ourselves to be positive today, and I just wanted to put in a plug for action.
Right.
This morning in my meditation, I just started thinking about homelessness, and I was just upset about it. And after I was done with my meditation, I Googled homelessness in Olympia, which is where I live. And I came across this organization, and I sent them my address, to volunteer. And, I think action gives hope, I think. And thinking about things tends towards hopelessness. The other thing was just, when you were going through the litany of problems that we're dealing with, and what I heard was underneath it all, fear.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, where does fear fit in with greed, hatred, and delusion? Is it under delusion, or
no, hatred?
Fear is
the
cause of hatred, or
oftentimes fear is the cause of hatred. Thus we have, the other, right? And when we are under threat, there's fight or flight. So the fight is the hatred, and flight is also, if we just put it more aversion, fight or flight is a aversive response, right? So hatred falls under, fear falls under hatred. But it's a good question.
Delusional aspect to it? Because we're predicting a future that we don't know.
There's actually, yes, that's right. It's also, though, greed and hatred are actually both expressions of delusion, because they are driven by the belief that either grasping or pushing away will solve our problem. And that's a deluded response. That's, and when we use this term delusion, it's really it's a technical term in Buddhism. It means that you don't understand reality, and you're acting out of a misunderstanding of how reality works, and particularly the law of karma, cause and effect. And so you're thinking that through the action of greed, I'm going to be happy. And that's not understanding that greed actually causes suffering, and that greed itself is a form of suffering. So, and greed is, again, greed, hatred, and delusion are all technical terms that have much broader meaning, right? I mean, I know you know this, Jim. I'm sharing it kind of with the general group so that people are sort of realize this is like, it's not code, but it's technical language that then we can spend the whole day or weeks just talking about what greed means in Buddhist terms, because it has all these sort of levels of meaning, you know. But we won't do that today. Thanks. Well, that's great that you're reaching out to help people in the homeless or the community. Yeah, beautiful. A good message. All right, folks. So we're going to make it till Friday, one day at a time. I hope you have good things to do over the coming days. And I will be back here on Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific. So hope to see you then. Be well.